What's up, everybody? I have talked quite a bit in the last few months about what God isn't, so let's talk a little bit about what God is. I have seen this image for the last 10 years here and there, and every time I see it, it makes more sense. So I'm going to share with you what artists like this have overtly been trying to communicate with future generations, while other artists like this covertly have been communicating this. And you're going to have no doubt that these Renaissance painters that were commissioned by the Church of Rome knew all of these Gnostic teachings in the 15th and 16th century. While the church was trying to reshape the world in their image, they were hiding all of this stuff right under their noses in the artwork. And this knowledge really wasn't supposed to exist at that time, because up until pretty recent times where they've discovered old texts, well, that the public knew about, we supposedly only had the church's version of what Gnosticism was, but the Renaissance painters did know these things. And paintings like this of supposedly Mother Mary have meaning that go far beyond that. So let's start out with the Cliff's Notes version of all of this, and then we'll do some more in-depth reading. You see all of the light rays shining out. That represents the emanations coming out from Source. So all creation, from us here in the abyss in the material world to the pleroma, which is the heaven above our seven heavens. Now, to explain that, you have the earth here in the center, and then the heavenly bodies, according to the ancients, in concentric circles around the earth. Those are the seven heavens. And then you have the firmament out there at the edge of, quote, space, which is essentially the line that makes the difference between the abyss and the material world and the pleroma and the heavenly world. Now, the Gnostics refer to the true God, Source, as the monad. And this is the symbol for the monad. There are a couple of variations, but this is the true God from which everything else in existence has come from. Here's another way of looking at this. Up at the top, you have the monad, which everything is emanating out of, and everything in the yellow outside of the blue area is the pleroma, basically the highest heaven. Here you have the firmament, and everything inside of that going into the blue area is all the physical universe, which they refer to as the abyss as well. In the beginning, all there was the monad, the source. From the monad emanated 15 pairs, male and female, of the aeons, kind of like the highest angels, only we're still up in the pleroma. One of these aeons was Sophia. Sophia decided to create a being by herself and basically had a bastard child that was outside of the balance of the universe. This child's name is Yaldabaoth. He's portrayed as having the head of a lion and the body of a dragon, and some accounts compare him to an aborted fetus. So Sophia decides she's going to hide Yaldabaoth from the monad and the other aeons. So she throws him down into the abyss in the darkness of the material world, separate from the pleroma. So now you've got the true God, the monad, up in the pleroma with all of his highest angels, the aeons, and Yaldabaoth down in the material world. Yaldabaoth is also referred to as the demiurge or creator, and as a divine being, he has the power of creation. Now, accounts vary on all of this, but some say that Yaldabaoth is trapped in the abyss here and knows nothing of the pleroma, and he's not so much evil as just ignorant of things. Other accounts say he created his angelic hierarchy based off the structure of the pleroma. So I guess we don't know what Yaldabaoth knows, but he has the power of creation, so he got to creating for himself. Managing a universe is a big job, so he delegates duties to his archons, who some would say feed off of negative energy and suffering. So they create an entire universe, and then the crown jewel, Earth, and decide to make a bunch of living creatures. Again, accounts vary widely here. One would say that a spark of the divine spirit of Sophia got trapped here in the physical world. Another version says that Yaldabaoth created man and woman out of clay and then tricked some angels into getting into the bodies and then trapping them. What they pretty well all agree on is that a spark of the divine spirit got trapped inside material bodies. And that Yaldabaoth made the world so enchanting and enticing that the divine spark wouldn't realize that they're here in a trap. And, life can be really good, but it also can be very bad. There's no denying there's a lot of suffering in this world. Somehow, news of all of this suffering got up to the Pleroma and the Monad, and he decides to send some help to wake up the trapped divine sparks. So who did he send? Jesus. But that's actually getting out ahead of things, so let's back up for a minute. Yahweh from the Old Testament says that he is the creator of the earth and the heavens. And if that's the case, then Yahweh is Yaldabaoth is the demiurge. Yahweh created the Garden of Eden, and somehow the Pleroma planted one tree of knowledge in there. And I guess Yahweh can't just cut the tree down, but he warns Adam and Eve, don't ever eat from that tree. The day that you do, you will die. Well, along comes a serpent and tempts Eve into eating from that tree and says, no, go ahead. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're just going to understand your predicament. So Eve eats it. She wakes up. She goes to Adam and says, hey, look, you got to see what's going on here. He eats one and he wakes up. Yahweh comes back and says, yeah, I know everything and I'm omnipotent, but hey, where are you guys? And they say, we're hiding, we're naked. And he says, well, how do you know you're naked? You ate from the tree. So then he slaughters an animal and makes clothes for them, expels them from the Garden of Eden, curses the ground to put forth thorns and thistles instead of fruit. It says, you and your descendants until the end of time will suffer because you dared disobey me. He's such a loving, caring God. What can I say? So it would appear that the serpent in the garden was trying to help the trapped souls. Some would even say that the serpent was the spirit of Christ. And we've basically been told the story backwards. As a pup, Ruckus dared to disobey me and chew up one of my paint rollers, so I've condemned him to a lifetime of salads and only the occasional belly rub. We can't all have the righteous vengeance of Yahweh. It really is amazing. This is an apocryphal telling of the Adam and Eve story that details one event after another of how Yahweh made Adam and Eve suffer, and it's full of comments about the love of the Father. Stockholm Syndrome is real. But right now we're looking at this from back here at the 30 million foot view. Yaldabaoth is all powerful here in the abyss. And according to this, it was the serpent that came to tell people that you are not of this world. Yaldabaoth told Adam and Eve that they would die if they ate from this tree, which makes him the deceiver. But hey, when you've got party tricks like raining fire down from heaven or conjuring all manner of infestation and sickness, then that makes you rather appealing to certain personality types, apparently. Or they're just scared shitless of getting on your bad side. So no matter what kind of cruel, vile acts you commit, people will justify them as righteous and worship you. Yeah, 185,000 overnight. Praise the Lord. I'm not going to get into the whole story of Yahweh in the Old Testament, but he decides to take one rather barbaric tribe that still lives with the philosophy of an eye for an eye. And can you imagine that? You get into a fight and a guy injures your eye and the judge says, well, okay, your turn. And the guy just has to stand there defenseless and you knock his eye out. Justice served. But Yahweh promises this one tribe that he will make them and their descendants rulers of this world. This continues on for a while until the monad says, okay, that's enough of this crap, and sends in SEAL Team Jesus. Now, Jesus wasn't concerned with the, quote, pagans. He specifically says, I've come for the lost sheep of Israel. And he flat out tells them things like, you are of your father the devil. The lust of your father you will do. He was a red rummer from the beginning and lives not in truth because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he hath spoken of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Now, you would think with direct sayings like that, and these lost sheep having him strapped to a cross, that the world would easily see that Jesus is in direct opposition to the tyrannical Yahweh. But being the father of lies, he whispers in his priest's ear and says, "Just tell everybody he's with us." And then they managed to convince the whole world that Jesus was speaking of Yahweh when he talked about a loving Father in heaven, when in reality, he was talking about the monad who had to send a part of himself into this world to pay a ransom to the bloodthirsty Yahweh. And this foiled Yahweh's plan, who was going to send a warrior king to the lost sheep so they could annihilate all enemies of Yahweh. Because Yahweh promises domination and cities of gold, his idea of forgiveness is a well-done steak, and he has never given the slightest pretense for salvation for us disobedient humans. So, there have been two main points in history where the Pleroma has sent an emissary down here to Earth. The first time was a serpent who said that if you eat of this fruit, you're going to realize that Yahweh is an evil, tyrannical God. The second time is when Jesus came and paid the ultimate humiliation and sacrifice to satiate Yahweh's bloodlust. Now, this really raises some topics for discussion, like, did the angels in heaven rebel against Yahweh because they found out the true nature of things? And what about all of those secretive groups? Do they know that we've been told the story backwards and therefore worship the true God? Well, no, I don't think so. I think they realize exactly how things are and realize that if you are depraved enough to commit all manner of atrocity, then you will gain favor with the tyrannical Yahweh. You know, he got really mad a couple times in the Old Testament because they wouldn't annihilate every living thing like he said to do. So I have no doubt that these people know who's who and what time it is. So now let's return back to our original work of art here. You've got the monad in the center up in the Pleroma, emanating all of creation out from him. And then up at the top in the clouds, but still here in the abyss, in the material world, you have the name of Yahweh, the God of this world. They know that he has ultimate authority over this material world, but that beyond the veil lies the Pleroma and the monad, the true God. Hidden in all kinds of works of art are things like this, where they tell you that it's the Mother Mary, but this is actually representing Sophia, standing on top of the moon and hiding her disgraceful child underneath. See that little monster that she is suppressing there? That's the God of this world. The Gnostics believe through acquiring knowledge of this deception, you can break free from the bonds of this material world and return to your true home, the Pleroma, and they call this process Gnosis. Static out.